What's up, gamers? Aaron Shack here with Shackcast episode 49. We're doing this one live. We have special guest Acting Relic here today. We're going to talk about live service games, Dragon's Dogma 2, and more. What's up, man?
It's going pretty good, bud. It's going pretty good. I want to start off the show with talking about how many hours of sleep have you lost in Dragon's Dogma 2?
That's crazy. Like the first night, so I got 10 hours in this game already, but like the first night,
you did that all in basically one shot.
Yeah, that was one session of like creating the character and then, playing alongside my pawn. Yeah, and I just lost track of time, and I kept just going like, one more quest, it's only 2 a.m., it's only 3 a.m., and then it's like, before you know it, you're fighting like werewolves in the dark and stuff, and you're just like, I gotta quit after this battle. But then the battle took like 30 minutes to put that dude down.
That's the thing about Dogma in general, but especially Dogma 2, is that the world is designed in such a way that you are going to spend a lot of time traveling from place to place, and along the way it's not so much, I'm going from Vern to Melv, and it's just, I'm going to take this road and go up here and go do that. It's like, no, you're going to get out onto the main road, you're going to walk maybe 20 feet, and then something happens that causes you, were you to draw a line on the map of, I'm going to Melv, it's like, it's more or less a straight line that winds a little bit. The actual path that you, as the player, take is a squiggly line that goes all over the place. Because enemies are going to come at you and bother you. Things are going to happen along the road, whether you see somebody's in trouble and needs help, or somebody needs to be guided from this place to another, or the pawns literally go, hey, I know about a cave that you don't know about. Let me show you where it is. And you follow them and you go on, you just lose infinite amount of time. It's like, I was going to Melv to deliver mail, and now I'm 4 forests deep in the east here.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They get you every time, though, off the path.
So much so. And I wanted to say, I think you've said before, your experience with Dragon's Dogma 1 is you played the demo, but haven't sat down to play the full Dogma 1 experience.
Right.
In totality. Because I'm on the other side of things, where Dogma and I have a lot of history together. I've beaten Dragon's Dogma 1 6 times.
Oh, dang. So why 6? What's happening there?
So, what happens is Dogma works very much like a Souls game, where you hit that end shot, new game plus your character, new game plus your character.
Oh, okay.
And what happens, especially with Dogma 1, is that while it is a new game plus, the enemies generally stay at their level, but you, the player, are whatever level you got to. So by new game plus 2 or 3, you are literally steamrolling your way across the map, where enemies look at you and you just look back and they're all dead. Because you're just so ridiculously powerful.
So does anything challenge you at that point? Or is it just a steamrolling fest all the way through?
Can challenge you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're running and Dogma 1's weird, because I played initial launch Dragon's Dogma when I first started. Initial launch Dogma sucked. It was not that fun to play. It was really clunky and weird. And then over time, they've added to it and fixed it. And then they added Dark Arisen, and I think Dark Arisen is really good. And the PC version of Dark Arisen is basically the perfect version of original Dogma 1. One of the pieces they added in PC Dark Arisen was, you know how you've slightly encountered it by playing Dogma 2 is that you'll come across these different port crystals that you can use a fairy stone to teleport to these port crystals.
Right.
But the fairy stones are one-time use. You use them and that's it. You've used your one use, your one teleport. So they very much are like, hey, you can use this to teleport, but understand that once you use it, it's gone. So think about when you want to use that teleport.
Right.
PC Dark Arisen doesn't have that problem because they give you at the start of the game the eternal fairy stone that has infinite uses. So wherever you've put your port crystals, so further into your new game pluses, if you just have port crystals at every major point, you can beat the game in an hour because you just go teleport.
No
teleport.
way.
Oh, I do this boss teleport.
That's crazy.
Do this boss teleport. The other side thing is that my two highest viewed videos on my channel are both Dogma videos.
Oh,
They're
dang.
both talking about enemies that I liked and enemies that I didn't like. I'm almost tempted to make it for Dogma 2.
Yeah.
Although I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to say because so far I've really liked all the enemies. There's none that I'm like, I fucking hate this thing. I want it to not be on my screen at all times.
No, I actually really like everything I've encountered, even if it's a hard fight and it's annoying or whatever. Like, I love the design of the fight, and I love the challenge that it brings.
Yeah. Aaron has something like 10 or 12 hours on your run through. Yeah, it says 10 hours on Steam. I have 47. Well,
Yeah.
to that,
I
I beat the game last night.
Okay. Hell yeah.
But I'm going to put I beat the game in about 4 layers of quotation marks.
Yeah, I figure.
Because playing this game, this is what Itsuno, the director of the game, this is what he wanted Dogma 1 to be, but not having the resources and all the aspects of what he wanted, what he had in his eyes, mind, vision is Dogma 2. What he released back in the day was Dogma 1, and now with modern technology and just a bunch of advancements in terms of changing things around, he has obtained basically the perfect version. Something to that. I want to show you something that's kind of interesting. So, I'm going to send you, this is a picture of all the icons of the different classes or vocations in Dragon's Dogma 2.
Okay.
And beneath it is the 9 vocation that were in Dragon's Dogma 1. They did some interesting things here. So, there are some big differences between these two games. What they did was they kind of streamlined the experience. So, Fighter and Fighter, they didn't change anything there. Fighter is for if you need sword and board and have fun there.
Yeah.
Ranger Vocation in Dragon's Dogma 1 was weird because initially, when you first start Dragon's Dogma 2, you basically have access to the starting 4, which is Fighter, Ranger, Thief, Mage. When you start Dragon's Dogma 1, you have access to Fighter, Strider, and Mage. Strider is Ranger and Thief put together.
Ooh, I like that.
You have a bow and 2 daggers. So what they did for Dogma 2 is separate those into 2 different classes. They also removed a lot of redundancy because further down that list, you'll see one that has the 3 daggers and the red and yellow flag.
Right.
That is something called Assassin, which was bow and double daggers, or bow and sword and shield, with a more focus on your melee attacks were better. But then at the very bottom there, the pure yellow one with the bow, that was ranger. It was bow and daggers, but the bow had more power. And when I say it had more power, I mean it's the difference of taking a bow and arrow versus an anti-helicopter SAM sight. Ranger in Dogma 1 had an ability called Tenfold Fury, where you pull out 10 arrows and shoot them all in one cluster. You combine that with explosive arrows, and you would just delete bosses.
Jeez.
So they're like, let's take... Because the other difference between these two games is Dogma 2 combat feels very weighty, feels very heavy. Like, when you are charging up a spell or building up a strike with a sword, you are committed to that animation, and it's like, all right, if this lands, that thing's knocked on its ass. But if I miss, I'm getting knocked into next week.
Man.
Dogma 1 felt a lot more arcadey. There was a lot more like, you can just kind of mess around and do a whole bunch of stuff. So they streamlined a lot of that down. And I gotta say, they also changed the way that you access vocations. So, say our starting 4 vocations, fighter, ranger, thief, mage. They're accessible at basically any major inn. You can change to them at a time. Warrior and sorcerer, we know from, and you've seen from playing your game, Aaron, those you have to acquire the weapon and deliver them to the vocation guild and be like, all right, now it's unlocked. The remaining 4, the game doesn't tell you how to get them.
Oh no.
This game is extremely like, hey, figure it out.
You'll find it.
Nothing. And it's almost a really fun experience to play this and not have that temptation of just open a Google tab and like, okay, where is this thing?
Yeah.
Because the natural aspect of finding stuff is really interesting.
That's where the fun is, man. I think that's what it is. It's not in the pushing buttons to execute combos or whatever. Like, the fun is in the journey.
Yeah. It's finding random stuff along the way. And further to that, I discovered in my game items that you see in the shop, like different armor sets, different weapons. You can be tempted, like that's not that much. That's about 20,000 gold. I have 80,000 with me. I can just buy it. 2 dungeons later, you might get that item off a drop from an enemy or from a chest. So it's like, the game wants you to explore. It wants you to scour the map and look for things, because sometimes you suddenly end up with way better gear than what you were thinking about buying in the shop, just because you found it in a random chest or off a encounter or something like that.
I've definitely seen that. Even in my short 10 hours, I've already encountered a few instances of that.
And further to that, the addition of making... So Dogma 1 had the secret tokens, the little, like, compass-looking medallions that you'd find various out through the world. Having them be scattered in random spots on the map in Dogma 2 makes you literally scour the map inch by inch, because you will find there's always something over there. Even if it's just like, there's an herb that I can grab, or there's a chest with like a couple 2,000 gold in it. It's worth finding. Having played a whole bunch of this game, there's still a whole bunch of stuff that I need to uncover. Of the 10 classes that are in this game, I still need to get 2. There's 2 that I have not found. I know where they are because I did some looking up and exploring, and it's just like, okay, they're over there. However, to get over there, there's a thing in the way that I don't almost want to go to because the game is very direct. It will put NPCs there and be like, hey, warning, some bullshit in there, be careful. Yeah, it's interesting. And there's some stuff there. I want you to keep playing because there's a thing with the pawns that I don't want to say. But there's something that can happen with the pawns that's very interesting.
Oh no.
So I'm excited to see what more you get to there. And I'm also excited to see what more they do with the game. Because already this game feels primed for a Dark Origin expansion. It feels like there's enough in the world to keep you quite entertained for quite a while, but there's also a decent amount of like free space on that map, or like they did with Dark Arisen, where it's just like literally get on a boat and go somewhere else. And there's energy for doing that. So, like, one of the things that I found that was interesting is that dungeons and caves that you find in Dogma 2, the chests, like if there's a chest, say at the end of the cave, it had a cool item in it. Chests don't respawn.
Right.
But ore deposits and other gather points and monsters respawn almost every day. So if there's a cave that happens to have, 4 deposits of silver ore and about a dozen saurians, I'm going to go hit that cave and go farm some stuff, because those are valuable things to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Huh.
Yeah.
I dig it.
It is a fun experience. So, yes, with that in mind, especially with the expansion part of that in mind, let's transition to our main topic, which was live service games. And this was brought on, I have the piece in front of me here, by a press thing that Warner Brothers gave out. So this is a statement from their CEO, JB. Rather than just launching a one-and-done console game, how do we develop a game around, for example, a Hogwarts Legacy or Harry Potter in general, that is a live service where people can live and work and build and play in that world in an ongoing basis? Now, as we are going to talk about today, I think live service done correctly can be a fun experience and is a fun time to be had. However,
I'm with you.
The percentage of one and done console of just, hey, it's out, you play the experience and have fun, and live service, those percentages should be like 10% live service, 90% one and done. Because the biggest factor of all, especially you've talked about it many times across your streams, Aaron, we only have so many hours in the day and so much capital to spend on games where you have to pick and choose. And if everything's a live service that requires a work week amount of investment to get your dailies and your weeklies done, it fucking sucks.
It does, yeah.
So,
and I think Destiny's been that way. It's had its great moments where incredible things happen within the game, but then there's been other times where it's like, no, I need to grind this every week so that I can be a certain level, so that I can participate in this activity or get this particular role on a weapon. And it's like, regular people don't do that. Like, regular gamers just kind of tune in when there's something new. and then they nope out. But the hardcore live service guys that, we want to have everything, we want to collect stuff, we want to live in this world and work hard and have a home and have weapons and mount them on the wall and have all our conquests of all the creatures we defeated, have them all stuffed up and mounted everywhere. Like, we want all that experience. But it can become like a job. And then, of course, you're talking about battle passes on top of that that you pay for, and then they go away if you're not working hard enough on the job. So now we're seeing games like Helldivers, Suicide Squad, Halo Infinite all have battle passes that are permanent. When you pay for them, they are there, and you can always access them later because they understand we're busy people. We have jobs, we have lives, we have other games that we like to play. Doesn't mean that Destiny and Halo are not important.
Yeah. Further to that, I think D2 is a perfect example of a live service that flip-flops between working really well and feeling like a job. One of the points I wrote down about is your live service game. The thing that the customer needs for the live service to succeed is that each expansion or piece of content is worth their time, and more effectively, if you're going to charge money for it, their money. I'll give the example of, I think one of the first examples of this live service format is original early 2000s MMOs, World of Warcraft. I played a lot of WoW when I was younger, and I was perfectly fine with buying Burning Crusade, buying Wrath of the Lich King, buying Cataclysm when it came out, because each expansion felt worth that initial asking price, and there was enough content to explore in that I felt like going through it. When it stopped feeling like that, which is, for me, was the end of Cataclysm and the beginning of Mists and Pandaria, that's when I jumped out. I was like, all right, I'm done. I've had my fill with WoW. I don't see the future going like in the trajectory that I want to with this game. And from everything I've seen and read, I jumped out at the perfect time because I got to avoid many expansions that were not great. I did the same thing with Destiny 2, where I played Destiny 2 up until the end of Forsaken, and then I jumped out, I think, the week that Shadowkeep came out. Now, it can bite you in the ass because I missed playing Witch Queen, which I've heard nothing but amazing things about. And people have said, oh, it's 100% worth buying to play Witch Queen, because it's worth the initial asking price. It is a good experience, both in terms of a story and a world, and the progression and all the gear that you acquire along the way. But I would only want to buy Witch Queen. I don't want to play Beyond Light. But the way that Destiny 2 works and the power creep that happens, where if you're not on the cutting edge of buying the expansions and the passes, you are not up to par to play the cool content that you might want to play. And I played Destiny 2 with a group of friends where we'd consistently do strikes and raids. I always felt like I was the anchor to the team, where it's just like my damage is not high enough, my stats are not good enough, because I'm playing catch up, and every time I make it further along the way in terms of catch up, something new comes out and I'm slowly pushed back. Yep. I don't like that. I really don't like that.
The FOMO model, the fear of missing out, is not great. And Destiny is hinged on that for a long time, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And I used to play it religiously, but now it's just kind of, I get in whenever it's exciting. I think, Beyond Light, it was cool because it was our first glimpse of using the darkness, But at the same time, it's such a drag to play through the whole campaign just to get the abilities. And then, if you're playing all three characters, then that's three campaign runs. And it's the same with Lightfall. And everyone will pretty much say that Lightfall wasn't a great story. It wasn't worth the money. And, people are unhappy with that one too. So, I mean, yeah, it's an exact example of your case where the expansions have to be worth the money. It can't be a copy pasta of something, or if it comes in and it feels like, oh, this isn't quite what you advertised. Like, I thought we were going to be roaming like the neon cyberpunk style cities of Neomuna, and it looks like we're running around inside my gaming PC instead, and there's really not that much life in the city or any excitement or any action. It's just another bland location.
The other thing that comes with that is, say, when you have an expansion and a new piece of content that furthers the story of the world and everything that's going on, you have to design characters within that your players are going to see in cutscenes or interact with in story missions and all that they want to interact with. Like, as much as I don't like World of Warcraft and especially don't like Blizzard, Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King had those characters. I really like Arthas Menethil as a character. I like Illidan Stormrage as a character. But especially something like Beyond Light, and further to that, Destiny 2, that's all I've heard about the Witch Queen, is that Savathun is a good character.
Yes.
She's a good villain because she's got complexity to her character arc and all these different things. But all I've seen about Beyond Light is just like, hey, the Neomuna people, some of them sound kind of cool and their designs are a little interesting, but whoever wrote this dialogue needs to have there needs to be a conversation.
It wasn't great. And I think the other thing that made me feel weird was those people are like 8 or 10 feet tall. Like, they're mega huge, and they make Osiris, who is like one of my favorite characters and one of the most powerful, constantly ostracized and exiled warlocks, who often, breaks the rules. He time travels, he uses forbidden abilities and stuff like that. He's one of the coolest characters, and he looks like a little shrimpy 5-foot Tom Cruise, standing between a bunch of pro wrestlers, and it just made me feel weird that these new
nothing.
Yeah, he does nothing the whole story.
Complains about there are bad things occurring.
They cucked my boy,
but he never
man.
Walks in and's like, "Oh, let me help you, Guardian."
Yeah.
So, what do you do?
Yeah, I didn't like that, and what was the other issue I had with that? I know you said some stuff about the writing. The writing wasn't crazy. It had that montage of learning the darkness abilities. I remember that part was actually kind of cool, but not much else. There's really not a whole lot. It was really cool that it took some time to master the darkness and it would go away, and your guardian would be weakened for a little while, trying to learn to use Strand. So it felt like there was a progression there, but it was so annoying that it took so long to learn Strand. And then at the end of the game, here's the worst part. They finally give you Strand, but then they make you grind to unlock each little new ability, and it's it's like a 15 to 30 hour, probably depending on how hard you grind. But I mean, for the average player, someone like me who's busy and plays a lot of different games, it was a good 15 to 30 hours for me. It was decent, man. So I mean, it took a long time, and that's just for one character, dude.
Yep.
This game hurts. They punish you
if you're playing Warlock, Hunter, and Titan all at the same time. Further to that time investment thing, I remember I tuned into one of your Suicide Squad streams the other day, where you were working on unlocking the Joker, and that's a real balance that a development team has to strike, where you have to make your gameplay and gameplay loop fun enough so that when you do throw your player a long, like, hey, this is gonna take a while for you to unlock the thing, so buckle up, get playing kind of thing. So there's that very particular balance of, is the game fun enough to play that I'm okay with spending this amount of time getting to, when do we get to the fireworks factory? When do we get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Like, in your opinion, Aaron, do you think Suicide Squad hits that where it's an entertaining enough experience for you to continue to play to unlock the things that you want to get?
No. It was not. I was having some fun here and there, but like that, I put in 3 hours that night, and I felt like I only got to like level 12 or something. You got to get to like 35. And I was just like, this is not fun, and I'm not excited to do this. This is a job.
Right.
And I do want to play as Joker because I have heard, like, everyone's like, oh, he's amazing, his dialogue's fun. You unlock one cutscene, which is the thing that blows my mind, is you get one cutscene of Joker, for unlocking him, and then you get to play as him, and then, of course, you got to spend another 30 hours or however long grinding his levels. Level him up, yeah. So, I mean, that on top, it would have been better. I'm not saying they have to give him right off the gate, but it would have been better for us to get him at some point early on and use those first 35 levels grinding him, because then it would be fun. It's like, here's your new character, here's your new weapons that you're going to be unlocking, and the new grind, and the new enemy types, and variations of bosses or whatever. That would have been the way to do it. This is like a horrible way. Because like I said, I wasn't really defending it when I was saying this, but there are a lot of games, like when Destiny introduces new subclasses or new weapons, they drop new bows in Forsaken, the swords were added during Taken King. Like, anytime these new things came in, it took a little bit of a grind to get there to unlock them, but like, it wasn't ridiculous. It wasn't, it didn't take you 3 weeks or 17 hours or... and some people are finding exploits where they can get it quicker, but, the point still stands. It does take a long time to unlock the core thing. And one thing that Avengers did right was when it did have its expansions, they got you on the ground playing as that character after about a 5-10 minute cutscene or whatever. A couple little things. Maybe the Avengers run into this new location and you do a quick little mission, but like beyond that, you're on the ground playing as Black Panther or Spider-Man or whoever they're adding. So as bad as even that game was in its execution, I look back at it as like, man, it was such a good idea and such a great premise, but like it was not the studio to execute that type of move. Crystal Dynamics was not ready for that. And I don't think Rocksteady is. I think Rocksteady is really great at their single-player, narrative-heavy, third-person combat. Like, the combat in the game's pretty decent. It's pretty fun. But, like, it's not engaging enough for me to want to do this for hundreds of hours on end. It's not a game that I would make, like, my main game. It's more of like it's a side chick of games. You come back to it maybe once a week if there's something there. But honestly, the multiplayer experience was so broken. There was so much lag and bugs, and some people couldn't even get past the login screen at the beginning of the game where you log into your WB account. So, I mean, there's still people probably to this day that can't get in and play. They're just waiting. They bought the $80 collector's edition. They can't get in. But yeah, I think this Joker thing is wrong. And then beyond that, I haven't got there because I haven't unlocked the guy, but everyone says there's no story edition in this season yet. Now, there is a second half of the season coming in a few weeks, but I'm not very excited. They're gonna have to really spin things around and say like, hey, oh yeah, this next part of the episode is gonna be, we're gonna tell you a little more about like, oh, you think you killed the Justice League? Well, actually, they were clones, or oh, Batman's back, or like
that.
Something like, where's the follow up? Because the ending of the story drop dead. Like it, we killed the final boss, but like there
Mm-hmm.
were a lot of big questions, and it felt like we got dropped off a cliff story-wise. And it's not in a good cliffhanger way where it's like, tune in next time, same bat channel. Like, no, it was like,
Right.
did you forget to upload the last cutscene into the game? Like, like it just rolled credits, and I was like, dude, did you guys forget something? Like,
It's on somebody's hard drive with marked as to be edited further
yeah,
down.
so
Like it's
somebody
still in the
didn't
rough
edit it.
cuts.
Yeah, someone forgot the final cut.
Oh,
We're gonna have to
boy.
wait. So yeah, it's not
Uh,
great. Not a good example of a live service game, and I don't know if it'll make it a year. Because that's the
Yeah,
plan. They have 4
that's
episodes.
another
They have
thing.
four
Right.
4 seasons, 4 characters. They got Joker. They got someone that looks like a Freeze character. Someone else. I'm not sure. I remember in that. I think Deathstroke is the last one. Which, I want the game to live long enough to get
We'll
Deathstroke.
get that, yeah, because
But I don't. I'm not gonna want to play the game if this is the way you're gonna dole it out. Because I want story. I want cutscenes.
Right.
They opened this DLC with a motion comic, and that to me, as much as I enjoy some motion comics here and there, it's lazy. We don't want to spend the money on the motion capture and the voice lines and scripting all these cutscenes out, and it's hard work. It really is. So I recognize that. I'm not being, cruel to the developers here, but it does come across as lazy when I'm paying. Well, I'm not really paying money for that DLC. It is free. I mean, it is like Avengers, where it's like once you own the game, the DLC and the characters are free, unless you want to buy the battle pass or unless you want to buy the character, which Joker's $10. If you want to play him right now, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I saw some people just gave in, and that's almost worse than maybe complaining about, oh, well, why does he cost $10 or why is he behind a paywall? Well, it's not really a paywall, but it sucks that people who would naturally were inclined to unlock him naturally just gave up because they're like, dude, this grind sucks. I just paid the $10 because I got to make a video on Joker. Like, that sucks because that sends the wrong message to the devs, which is like, hey,
Because at the end
we'll
of
give
the
you some
day,
money.
They're still holding the bills of like, oh, I can see that you're unhappy with this player. However, if we check the account statements, you bought him.
You bought him.
We offered you the option, and you decided that that was the best option for you.
Mm-hmm.
Further to one of the points that you made along the way there, where, yes, it is very important that the studio that handles a live service game is just a studio that understands how to do a live service game. Forcing live service upon a studio that is traditionally known for single player, like release and done games, as it were, a Rocksteady where they put out Batman games where it's like, hey, play the game. It's maybe, say, 10, 20, 30, 40 hours long. You explore your thing, you get your end credits, you're done.
Yeah.
Your experience is over. Forcing that studio to then pivot and have to do live service because the publisher says you have to do live service now, it just destroys what creativity that studio might have. I think of the example of, say, Bandai Namco went up to From Software and said, next Souls game has to be live service. How much that would destroy the way that Souls games are designed, where they're designed to be release, play it, finish it, and then play co-op with your friends if you want to, but this is the complete package, it's done. We might add it DLC later, but sometimes it doesn't need it.
Yeah.
My favorite example of that is Armored Core 6. Could Armored Core 6 get DLC? Absolutely. There's 100% ways of doing DLC missions, if not just more free DLC. What they've done free DLC for it, where they added new weapons into the shop that you can get. But it doesn't need it. it's a done package. It's done. They don't need to touch it anymore. They can go work on other things. They don't have to touch it. They can go back and do balance changes for PvP, but the core experience of the story is said and done. There's nothing more that they need to touch about it. Whereas, say, my favorite example of a live service game that I think works well is Warframe. Because two key things. One, from the outset, Warframe was a live service game. It was a bare bones box that they put out for free and said, we will steadily improve this box, add more boxes to it, and slowly build us like a collection of a castle around it, if you will. It slowly, because game's been out now, they just hit, what are we at, 11-year anniversary? Is what it was?
Yeah, sounds about
Digital. Where the hell is it? Yeah, 11-year anniversary on March the 20th.
Sheesh.
I realized the other day when I was thinking about notes was I have played Warframe since 2012. I have played it for nearly its entire life cycle. I've played it from basically when it launched on PlayStation. And I have seen it evolve and change and grow, as it were. And I gotta say that Digital Extremes knows what they're doing in terms of steadily adding stuff. Now, I won't say that they're perfect because I don't think any developer is perfect in the way that it goes. And there are lots of times where they do missteps. The difference is that they are very good at listening to their community and be like, shit, yeah, that was a bad, like, when a character comes out and it's just like, hey, the grind to get this thing is 50 hours long. This fucking sucks. You need to change this. They're like, well, you got a point there. Let's fix it. And we cut that grind for 50 hours and we turn it into 12. Where we rework a few systems here and there, and suddenly you can get the character a lot faster. The other aspect is Warframe is a free-to-play game. So inherently, there's going to be monetization there because the company has to profit. It has to make money to be able to pay all their employees. So I'm perfectly fine with giving them money every now and again when I see something nice. Like, hey, you released a new character. I really like the look of them. I'm going to buy them. I'm perfectly fine with doing that. And they're also perfectly fine with saying to all their players, you don't have to.
Yeah.
When I played Warframe Hardcore back in 2013, 2014, I ran with a group of people, and we all played the game a little differently in terms of what we focused on and also how much real money that we put into the game. I was working at the time, so I had a lot of disposable income to spend on the game, so I put some money in. One of my other friends did the same. One of our third friend was hard-pressed to spend as little money as possible. So what he did was he used the in-game trading system. He still got everything that we did, but he got it of his own accord, where he would trade other players for premium currency to then go and buy the stuff.
Dang.
And he taught me how to do it. And I want to tell a little story about how I crashed a market by accident.
Oh my god.
So, this was the summer of 2013. This is over 10 years ago, which is crazy when I think about it.
Yeah.
There was a piece of content in Warframe called the Derelict. Now, the Derelict was, you don't really do a whole lot. You go in there and you kill some infested characters and you get some resources along the way. But the real thing that you wanted was something called the Dragon Vault. Now, Warframe has a system where you get these mod cards that you can put into your weapons or your characters that increase their power. So you get a card like Vitality that gives you additional health. or a card that gives you electric damage on your sword or something like that. And these cards are graded in a rarity from bronze, silver, gold, and then there's a couple unique colors for stuff like Rivens and Amalgam mods. Gold mods are generally the highest ones, and they're usually very rare drops. The Dragon Vault held some of the best gold mods in the game. I'll give the example of a mod called Blind Rage, where a fully maxed out Blind Rage mod card, I think it adds 90% additional damage on your character's attacks, but the costs of the abilities that you cast, they cost more energy. Blind Rage is a very good mod card. It's essential to basically every build going forwards and is still a valuable mod card to this day. Back in the day, the Dragon Vault was designed where to open the vault you would need a key. You would need one of the keys to open the door. Now, the game is structured that there are 4 keys and there are 4 player slots. So you go in with a squad of 4, everybody takes one key, somebody finds the vault and goes, oh, it's the decaying key. John's got the decaying key. Come over here, John. Unlock the vault. We all get the loot. Now, you know from personal experience, Aaron, getting 4 people together to play at the same time can be kind of cumbersome.
Sure.
Now, the thing about the keys is that each of the keys would give you a defect. So there's... I can't remember. Let me check the names. I believe it is Hobbled Decaying. Let me get the exact names here. Dragon Keys. Warframe. Dragon Keys. There are the Bleeding Key, the Decaying Key, the Extinguished Key, and the Hobbled Key. So, the Bleeding Key reduces your health by 75%. It's a lot. The Decaying Key decreases your shields by 75%. The Extinguished Key reduces your damage by 175, and the Hobbled Key makes you move slower.
Oh no.
However, right around that time, there happened to be a character that came out known as Inaros. Inaros is my favorite Warframe character to play. The thing about Inaros is that Inaros has a lot of health. And when I say a lot of health, I mean more health than basically any other character in the game. Modded correctly, at that time, I think I had 5,000 health on my Inaros. So, you know, operating with only 25% of that, 25% of 5K... Run a quick calculation here for that. 5,000 times 0.25, still 1,000 health.
Yeah.
Also, Inaros doesn't have any shields, so Decaying Key is actually nullified. There's no shields to take, so he doesn't take it. Extinguished Key reduces damage. Well, he doesn't really care about damage because his main ability is just stun people and allow you to walk up and just do a finisher attack with your melee key. And then there's just the Hobbled Key, which is reduced speed, where you can counter it with speed mods. And so you can see where I'm going here.
Yeah.
I ran Dragon Vaults carrying all 4 keys.
Oh no.
And I ran them solo.
Oh no.
So that I didn't have to wait for a team. I could just go loot the vault. And I ran for, I think, basically most of that summer. I would run like 4 or 5 vaults a night, and then the mod cards that I would get, I would then sell off to people. And I traded my way into roughly around, I think it was about 2,000 platinum, which exchange rate here for how much that actually is. How much that is platinum-wise, 2K Platinum's about $100.
Jeez.
So I merged my way to about $100 worth of currency, and along the way also merged myself, I think, at least a couple different Prime character sets so I could I basically bought most of the content that was out at the game, but I spent maybe $20 along the way where I just like, I'll buy a bit of additional platinum. But that is the antithesis of Warframe, where if you got the time and you know how to do it, you can sit there with trade chat open. Like back in the day when I was playing on PlayStation 4, I'd plug a keyboard into my PS4 so that I could type faster to literally merch my way to that much currency.
Dang. And you probably had like very little competition on the PS4.
It was a thing of whatever other people would attempt to sell the mods at, I would undercut every single person. I destroyed. This is the reason why if you go into, I don't know if it still exists, but if you go searching to buy, the price might have gone back up. I can probably check the market online here. But the market's also weird now because not only do we now have crossplay where everybody can play with everybody else now, so that we're no longer siloed into these weird existences of the PlayStation only space or the Xbox only space. Every space can interact with each other. So the trading market has completely done, just the prices and stuff have gone all out of whack, where some things are really valuable, some things are dirt cheap now. Like I barely touch trade chat, especially because Warframe operates off of regional servers, and I find trading in the Japan server is kind of weird. Like the way that commerce goes over there is weird compared to North American servers. That said, North American servers can be very aggressive when it comes to trade. Like trade chat is not. It's one of those things where most veteran players, when like new players come out, it's like, oh, should I go into trade chat? And it's like, no, those are not nice people. They will take you for your money.
Oh no!
If you don't know how to merch your way out of things. But if you need stuff, you can go in there and look for stuff. But anyways, all this to say, the game allowed me to do that. I could go in and I didn't have to spend a whole lot of money on buying in-game currency to unlock all the things that I have. Now, since then, I have put in a whole bunch of money into the game. I have bought Platinum, the in-game currency. I have bought Prime Access, which is unlock the new Prime Access character along with a decent chunk of premium currency as well. But at the same time, I've put 1,700 hours into the game, and because it's a free-to-play game, I feel justified in spending that money because I feel that my time has been rewarded from that. Now, if Warframe was an $80, or in the case of something like Dogma 2, $90 game, and then you put options on top of that, go away. I ain't spending no money on you if you are a full release game and then charging additional microtransactions. I'm fine if you want to do expansions 2, 3, 4 months down the line where it's like, hey, here's the new DLC pack. That's fine. I'll think about it and I'll go, yeah, you know what? That looks like a nice expansion. I'll buy that. But if from the hop you're offering something like $10 to just buy the Joker instead of suffer through 40 hours of work, you need to rebalance your game. You need to cut that grind time down. Like you were saying, Aaron, they should have made it so that, oh, you play for 2 hours, here's the Joker. But hey, you can keep doing missions to unlock weapons that are for him and slowly along the way, and you drip feed additional stuff where suddenly the player's okay with playing the full 40-hour grind because there's enough carrots along the way to keep them wanting to play.
I'm not sure if there's any carrots.
You got
That's what I think. I'm not sure I've seen a single carrot.
When you put rats in your maze, you have to add enough cheese, or the rats are just gonna burrow a hole through the wall in the maze and leave and go to a better maze.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, yeah.
You got to an interesting point there where it's like you don't want to spend the initial cost of the game and then some. Destiny started out that way, where it was a full price game, but you did get, like, you got a solid campaign.
You got enough content.
You got the first raid, you know, you got strikes and stuff like that. And then Destiny went free to play, and then they were like, hey, we still have to charge for expansions. We still have a very vast, you know, store of microtransactions where things are pretty expensive. Like, when they came out with the Witcher costumes, for each character, it's like $10. The new Ghostbuster stuff is like $25 for everything. So if you want the Ghostbusters car for your ship and, you know, all this other stuff. So it's pretty weighty on the microtransactions, but there are times where I've like, I really enjoy this game, and oh my gosh, they have a cool weapon skin for one of my favorite guns or my favorite class, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? It'd look cool to actually rock this and walk around with this, or to have this emote or this takedown. And I did the same thing with Avengers, where it was like, even though they charge you full price for the game, you had a really solid campaign.
Right.
But it was because of the infrequency of updates, where it was like, the first update was a few months after the game, and then after that, each update was like staggered and really long amounts of time, from a year to half a year to a few months, and it was all over the place, and it felt like they had no rhyme or reason. They had no roadmap. They got rid of the roadmap because they were tired of being held accountable to the roadmap.
Yeah.
And then they just, you know, they had a lot of other issues. They had data miners that were, you know, spoiling things that were coming to the game, and, you know, constantly messing with a lot of their surprise reveals and plans, so they actually pivoted a lot of stuff and launch things out of order to keep people on their toes. So, I mean, I think they just had the roughest run, but they were also not prepared, because Crystal Dynamics, they're Tomb Raider guys. They're not
single-player, single-release
Tomb
developers
Raider.
that have been now asked to create a live service experience with a heavy multiplayer focus.
I would have liked Avengers if it was either just a story or even with the 4-player co-op, and just occasionally drop some new maps or whatever, or new characters. But it doesn't need to. The gear grind was kind of inessential. Same with Gotham Knights. It's not a live service game, but they did add the same gear grind, thinking that people would just like constantly play the game. And it's like, dude, the gear grind and the skill tree was inconsequential. They should have given us some of that stuff right out of the box. And some of those skills in the skill tree were like unlocking like 10% extra damage. I'm like, why the fuck am I clicking this on a skill tree where I have to go in there and click on that? That feels like a waste of my time that I have to invest in that skill.
Yeah.
But let me see if there's other. Helldivers, I know, is getting a lot of flack, which is weird, because you can invest for $40. You can do the $60 version if you want the fancy costumes, but yet, and this is probably the problem with gaming media, that they're literally just lambasting the battle pass and the coins that you use, the real world currency, which you can also find in game. And if you just play a couple missions, you can easily buy things that are in the store.
Exactly.
And so I don't really see a problem with that game.
And say there's like Dogma 2 got hit with it as well, where Capcom did Capcom things where it's just like, hey, here's a whole bunch of additional I heard somebody on a podcast describe it as salaryman purchases, which I live in Japan, so it makes a lot of sense to me, where you have somebody who doesn't have the time to play the game, but they have a bit of additional capital that they can buy on these things and get these additional things. Whereas everything that Capcom offered as paid purchasable DLC for Dogma 2, every single one of those items is earnable in game. You just have to put the time in. And I think that's what, like, I personally don't think that Dogma 2 should have had those available. I think you should have just, like, hey, here's the game, go play it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the thing of, if you put those options in front of people, you should, like, I think we should have enough power within ourselves as consumers to do a research and go, hey, are they nickel and diming us, or is this just for, like, is that option presented because the grind takes an eternity and this is an easy out, or is it just an additional piece on top? Like a Helldiver situation where just play, like, pay your $40, play the fucking game and unlock what you want. Like, ignore all that stuff and don't cheat yourself out of the experience of playing the video game.
Yeah.
And just play it.
I think the other issue that I saw with Dogma was that, like, people were looking at the, you know, the respawn crystals. What are those called that they give you?
The wake stones.
Yeah. People were like, is this game so hard that I'm going to spend my real world money buying these stupid crystals? Like, people were worried. Isn't that dumb?
Like, if you die, you maybe lose 4 minutes of progress at the most.
Not that bad.
And wake stones, like, I watched you play, Aaron, and literally by taking 2 pawns on a quest with you, you found 1 shard in the middle of the quest, and then by completing the pawn quest of those 2 pawns, you had a full wake stone shard in maybe an hour.
Yeah. And I could have swapped out pawns right after that and started a farm.
Go for a different quest. Yep. Absolutely. I actually want to pivot to kind of a weird scenario of, especially because a new piece of content for it just was announced, was when a game pivots to live service to rescue itself. My example being No Man's Sky.
Okay.
Where No Man's Sky came out. I remember buying it on release and playing it, and it's like, this is cool in concept, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff missing. Oh no, my game crashed. Oh shit, well, I guess I'll reload and keep playing. Oh no, it crashed. So, it was rough.
It was.
But over time, steadily, more and more, here's a new update, here's a new update, here's new piece of content. And several years down the line, it's gotten to a point now where it's very easy. I saw somebody on Twitter saying, Sean, please stop. You can rest. The game was good 10 updates ago. You don't have to keep updating. Yet for some reason, they're like, nah, we're bored. Here's more content.
Yeah, they just keep going.
It's all for free. Like, I bought that game once. I repurchased it on PC when it was on sale, but not a single piece of additional content that has been added to that game. They've put a pay, and people have even said, we are perfectly fine with paying you money, Hello Games, for new expansions. Like, nah, here you go.
Nah, here it is. And so we've literally called it. It's impacted our gaming culture so much that we say, when is this game? When is Cyberpunk gonna have its No Man's Sky moment? And then it did.
Right. It did. It did. It can be a way for certain games to carve themselves out of a bad launch. Like, Cyberpunk needed it because it needed to fix all the performance stuff. But then once they ripped all that, like, bad code out of there and it finally ran smooth, it's like, shit, this game's pretty fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to be in here. And we have seen this probably happen more times than it really should. Of game comes out, has a bad launch, and you literally put a bookmark on it and go, wait for the patch.
Redfall.
So, goodness.
We're going to wait a year, actually. I think we're coming up on that year anniversary, so we'll see. Supposed to drop that 60 FPS everywhere and fix all the weird stuff that never... And that's the thing. Arcane is a great studio, man. We know they put out bangers in the past.
Now,
this is their anthem.
Say, Arcane's another situation, such like an anthem of take a studio that's known for single player, single release, story driven title. You got to do multiplayer live service. Do it. I don't care how you do it. Do it. That's not fair. Give it to a studio that is designed. Even if you have to build a new studio, give it to a team that knows what they're doing. As much as I don't really like Apex Legends, I fully believe that Respawn Entertainment knows what they're doing, and Apex is a good game. It's not for me. I don't personally like it. I really wish they would do a Titanfall 3. But I perfectly understand why Apex works, because the experience that they have designed and the content release strategy of adding new characters, new maps, new guns has been working very well for them.
Yeah, it has. Absolutely.
Yeah. Another example that I have on my list here of a game that I think is good and having it as a live service experience has been good, but the other antithesis to live service that you kind of touched upon with Avengers is that your content release schedule has to be a pretty consistent drip so that you can get people that come back. You have your initial release, and then slowly you add more and more and more and more to that release. And as we've sort of discussed throughout the show, it's okay to charge for those releases, but you got to make it worth our while. But you also have to be consistent. You have to remind people that, like, hey, this game exists and there's more stuff. My example for this is Darktide. Darktide's a really good game. I really like playing it. It has amazing combat, amazing music, and a really cool world. Content-wise, I use the example of it is the best looking and sounding kiddie pool I have ever interacted with, where it is super fun to do, and then you look at the depth of how much there actually is to do, and you go, where's the rest of the game, Fat Shark? Also, this game's been out since December of 2022. We've received, I think, 4 new missions, a class rebalance, a couple new weapons, and a bunch of bug fixes. We need more stuff.
That's a little light, yeah.
And here's the thing. They've hinted at what this game should be. Aaron and I, we fought the twins. The twins is a really good fight.
Yeah.
Like that's when Darktide's at its best, where you are on your back heel running in a circle, making sure you don't get clipped by attacks, and you are having an intense fight.
That was like a raid, that whole mission. Yeah. It was like a raid out of Destiny or something. That whole mission was crazy.
But, like, the twins took an entire year to come out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can't be that slow. There needs to be more. Please. I want to like this game more, and I want to keep playing it, but I am a constant span of, is there anything new out for Darktide? No, uninstall. No. I'll wait for when there's new content so I can reinstall.
Sadly, that's been my approach to the game. As much as I love it, and as much as I love the Vermintide games, I was like, you know, if they're not churning out lots of new stuff, or if I don't have enough friends on the friends list engaging with it regularly, it's got to go.
Yes. Yep.
And that sucks, because those are all really good games. They're
Yes.
really good quality experiences. I think another live service game, and this one's an old one. I don't know if you played it. Did you play Evolve?
I Evolve is one of those where I watched a bunch of videos of people playing Evolve and I saw some really cool ideas there.
There were, yeah.
But I never personally got into it. Did you play it?
Yeah. And it was really cool for the first few months. They added new monsters, they added new hunters that would go after the monsters. It was really a good dip into what the character shooter would later become, you know?
Mm.
And each person had their own skills and unique abilities, and it was really fun. I enjoyed playing healer and trapper and all that stuff. But after a while, I think they announced the Hydra, and I think that one was like the OP monster where it was like, dude, once you were playing against Hydra, you knew it was going to be a one-sided match from the start. And that's what was interesting, was the monster starts off as like a little fledgling, and you got to eat and hunt things and kill things. And if the hunters find you early in the game, they could take you down like you're nothing, like a little grunt. But of course, if you're able to stalk and hide and, you know, do monster things, be the true apex predator, you can build yourself up to be unstoppable at some point. Not completely, because I think with the base monster that they had, it was like, even if he maxed out, like if you were skilled enough and you had a plan and you trapped him and everyone used their perks at the right time and didn't miss their shots and nobody got downed, you know, you could still make it happen. But things got really unbalanced. I think by the time Season 2 came around, I had purchased all the stuff. I was ready, and all my friends had noped out because they were like, no, it's super one-sided. It's not fun. Everyone wanted Left 4 Dead 3 instead.
Right.
And that hurt. And I don't know if Turtle Rock was pushed to do that, or if that was their own idea. But maybe it was just poor execution. Maybe it was too soon for that type of thing because people just didn't seem to like it, you know?
Yeah.
Like they didn't understand it. And we often hate what we don't understand.
Right. And it's interesting because I think right around that time, I don't know if like Evolve was the matchstick that like started that like addition of like asymmetrical stuff.
Yeah. Pretty early on.
At the same time, let me actually pull that up because I want to know. Evolve came out. That was October 2014. And 2 years later in June would be the release of Dead by Daylight. Because while I don't particularly, DBD is just not my cup of tea. DBD has done very well for itself in terms of a life cycle and being basically one of the only asymmetric killer versus survivors or like monster versus humans type games that has stuck around.
Yeah.
Because Evolve didn't quite make it. Friday the 13th has had a whole bunch of licensing trouble and player count issues and stuff like that. I remember one of the ones that came out that I actually wanted to play, but then never got to was the Predator one. Where one person would play as the Predator, and then 4 people play as just Marines, and the Predator slowly stalks and picks off.
I think that's being revived, actually, by Ilphonic, who did the Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed game, which is another asymmetrical game.
Asymmetric game.
Where you're 4 dudes hunting the ghost. And then, of course, the Evil Dead game is kind of struggling.
Right.
But it was fiercely loyal, and it was really good, and it had, like, the original cast, and, you know, it paid homage to the entire franchise. You had maps from Army of Darkness and all the movies, and you had villains and demons and heroes from each movie and even the TV show. But, I mean, it just fledged out. Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out recently, and that one seems to be doing all right, but I still think DBD's gonna outlive it all.
DBD's the juggernaut that's like continues to survive and just keep going on. One of my other examples that was stuck in the midst of all that was a game called Depth, which was asymmetric, 4 players as divers, 2 players as sharks. And the way that Depth plays, the way that you as the shark hunt down people is because from shark perspective, it's third person. You see your shark move around, and like each of the sharks have different special abilities. Say like hammerheads, they have really strong ram attacks, so they can literally bust through walls of these sunken ships and grab a diver and run off and swim off with them. Or if you have a thresher shark, you have this whip attack with your tail. It was so cool, but they're in the midst of sunsetting their game. They're kind of like, hey, it had its cycle where it came out and did its thing, but it just like it didn't like strike that chord enough where it ended up working and having a mainstay. And it kind of sucks because like I've looked at the studio that made Depth, and a lot of their other like releases just didn't go so well. But Depth was such a cool concept that just like it didn't find enough of an audience. And I think that's another thing that can happen with live services is that you need that critical mass of people playing, streaming, making content, all that stuff that goes on for the studio, both the developers and the publishers, sometimes they're the same entity in turn, to be able to say, yeah, let's keep planning out content and releases for this game, and let's keep adding to it as it goes.
When we had games like Knockout City, where it's a dodgeball game, and it died within less than a year, and we had a whole bunch of games follow that same route. I think Foam Stars just came out, and it's similar to Splatoon in some ways, but it's actually pretty different. And then, of course, you have examples of other live service games, but they don't have... The problem is with games like Knockout City is, like, you don't have a big brand behind it like Marvel, or you don't have Bungie, which is like, this was just on the tail end of Halo, and it was like, what are they going to do next? And well, whatever they do next...
pinned as, this is the future of our company.
Right, and they had us because they were like, oh, we're going to do, like, science fiction, meets, like, kind of mythical RPG stuff. And we were all like, yeah, man, take your time and let's see what you cook up with. People were engaged. But it's hard to do that when you're just nothing. You're coming up out of thin air with an idea, whether it's Depth or whether it's Knockout City. It's like, sure, dodgeball is really fun, but is it so fun that I'm going to buy the battle pass and play every day, all day for 10 years to support the development cycle and keep everybody with a job? That's tough.
Another, on top of that, the other one was Rumbleverse.
That's another one.
Wrestling battle royale game. I played it, and it was so much like the way that the combat worked and how you could build and play and all the interactivity that you had there. It was a really tight, well-made game, but it just didn't have the critical mass of players to justify to stick around. So they sadly had to kill it off.
You know what else is around? Naraka Blade Point, the battle royale with the kind of Japanese themed characters, where it's not about shooting each other. It's more melee focused, even though there are some ranged weapons. Kind of an interesting twist on things, and it's got a good genre. It's definitely well monetized. There's lots of characters, lots of costumes. I think you really have to stack your game full of stuff like that, and it's got to be constantly changing and evolving and growing. If we look at Rainbow Six, they're celebrating
Right.
probably 10 years or more with Siege at this point, where they've
Mhm.
added so many new characters and maps,
Yeah.
and they several times they have had to like stop releasing characters and say like, okay, this is the health update where we're
Mhm.
going to get rid of cheaters, we're going to change different aspects and rules of the game, or we're going to revitalize
Rebalance
the
these
servers.
characters so they're not a 100% pick rate on
Exactly.
character selection.
Yeah, there were so many things over the years that they had to make little tweaks with, and they would have health updates, and some games seriously need those. But they were
Yes.
lucky that they were able to do those things and pivot. But Tom Clancy definitely has, name recognition. They had really solid gameplay, like Destiny does, like Warframe does, like Overwatch, like Apex Legends. They all have really solid gameplay at the core that makes you want to boot up that next match because
Mhm.
you enjoy the flow of the gameplay, and not every game has that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So Rainbow Six is one of the ones that's stuck around, and it's obviously had its ups and downs over the years, but they've come out the other side, and they've done some really cool things, and they've experimented, and they took time to monitor their game's health. I think even Division did that at a certain point, where they did some health updates and recalibrated, different perks and the way crafting works, and they said, oh, this build in the dark zone's like a little ridiculous. We need to look at that.
Right.
We need to
Yeah.
address this. Our PvP community needs to be, you know, what is it, maintained? I guess would be the thing. You always want to make sure that it feels like fair for new players coming in, but you also want to honor
Yes.
the builds that high skill, players with no lives that are, crafting these incredible builds that allow them to do cool stuff. You still want that to be there too. You want the reward and the chase to be there.
It's one of the things that I have the most conflicted opinion on with Warframe, where I love Warframe and I think it's a really good game, but getting offering it out to people like, hey, you should come play this game. It's a very difficult pitch because it's like, okay, there's a lot of content to get through in this game, and understanding how to do that, and like how to do it in a way where like, how can a brand new player in 2024 step into Warframe and play the game in such a way where they get to experience everything and they don't feel the need to, where they can play the game and not spend any money and just play and experience the game just like we did as people who have been around for 10 years, where it's just like, you very much need somebody along the way in that game to be able to guide you and be like, hey, yeah, the grind for that's kind of tough, so you might, here's what you can do along the way to make it easier, or just like different things of information that the game doesn't tell you. Like, I'm very much for the way that Warframe has done things, where all the content that has ever been in the game is still in the game. They haven't sunset any content. There's still literally 10 years worth of content to go through. It's the density at which that you access that content that I think needs some work, because I don't think Warframe is very new player friendly. I think especially a lot of the new pieces of content and stuff that have been coming out have been very veteran favoring, which is fair. They have a lot of veteran players to cater to. I enjoy being catered to for all the time that I've invested in the game, but you only have so many veteran players to play upon. You need new blood, new life coming into the game. So I personally think that the future of Warframe should be balancing between continuously adding new content for the psychopaths like me that have almost 2,000 hours in the game,
Yeah.
and giving stuff to people who are just brand new to the game. Because like it's while I appreciate that they haven't sunset any content, Destiny 2,
Yeah.
you need to make the experience for accessing that content not looking at Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, it almost needs to have some sort of quest log where it's like new player, and then it's like campaign mission 1, campaign mission 2, 36, mission 43, expansion number 5, expansion 12. You know, like it needs to be laid out in a way where you always know what to click on next. You shouldn't be confused about where am I going now, or like who am I fighting? Is this over yet? Do I need to go pick flowers on this planet? Like,
how do I approach this time? How do I approach this in the best way possible where I don't feel like I'm spending multiple hours on something that, like, 2 missions over is going to be completely nullified because like the gear that I was working on acquiring over here is basically at modern times it's pointless in using because it's so underpowered.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and the point with Destiny that you tapped into is like the vanilla campaign that was on the disc is no longer there. Forsaken, one of the best expansions, is no longer there. What they allow you to do now for Forsaken is they let you replay that initial first mission where Cade dies. That's all they have. So they let you watch that cutscene.
So you don't get the other side of Forsaken, which is hunting down all the people that killed Cade, all those different wardens, and then going after Overon Sod.
Well, and that whole area is gone. The area where it took place. That I'm so glad that they at least kept the Dreaming City. Like that's probably next on the chopping block, but I think that is one of the coolest, most fantasy elements of Destiny that I love so much.
You also lose that oh my god moment of like finishing Forsaken and just like, hey, here's the new play space, the Dreaming City. Is like, wait, you're telling me we get 2 spaces for this DLC? Let's go.
That's why it's one of the best DLCs. They absolutely killed it. They came in there and it was all hands on deck, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. They introduced new concepts, you know. So yeah, a lot of that's gone, and I have heard from people because I've played with a lot of new players recently, and they're confused, man. As much as there are little quest things that pop up, like people are like, should I even play stuff from a year ago, or should I just jump into the latest thing, the latest season, the latest expansion? And it's like you do kind of get a boost each season. Like they bring you up to the lowest level of the new season. They do that now, which is actually helpful. So it, even if you do get behind, they kind of catch you up, but then you still, if you want to do stuff throughout the season, or if you want to participate in the raid, you still got to grind up to a certain extent. So I mean, they took out a lot.
Like an emotional, from an emotional storytelling point of, say, with the removal of content on that front, say the only piece that we have left for, say, Forsaken is watching Cade 6 get killed off.
Yeah.
For some people who are just experiencing Destiny for the first time, they don't know who Cade 6 is. They don't know emotionally how to feel about watching this character get removed from existence, because they go, oh, the robot guy with the cool voice, he's gone.
I never met that guy.
Not understanding who he is and what he did and all this other stuff, because it's not available.
And then Uldren Sov has gone through a whole, transformation, which I actually think is kind of stupid. He's become a guardian now. Some ghost flew over to him and chose him, and now he doesn't have any memories, and now he's a new person called Crow, and now he's not even the Dark Prince anymore. He's just kind of he's kind of just a loser, just a little outcast guy on the edges, and I'm just like, I would have rather you guys just left him dead. Like the vengeance thing
Exactly.
was
Have the
satisfying.
honor to just kill people off
Yeah.
and keep people as villains.
Yes.
Because what it also does is that if they make him shift like that and delete his memory, that also plays with us as the players emotionally, where we no longer like that character no longer remembers what they did, so they don't remember the reason that we, the player, hate them.
Yeah.
And we then have to justify why do we feel these feelings if that content no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's strange. Strange.
Yeah, it really is. So they definitely, writing wise, there are definitely some inconsistencies and some weird decisions made along the way. And I think, yeah, with that lack of content, or even if you don't go back and play Destiny 1, there's so many people that'll ask, should I play Destiny 1? It's like, that's a hard question to answer, man, because that's a hard sell. That's a lot of time. You're going to need a whole group of friends just to do that with.
Right, because that's the other part is like Destiny was designed from the outset to be played with friends.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a group of people that are willing to come with you, or enough people in the space that are existing to play with, is it worth playing that content?
Yeah, it's difficult. And the new LFG stuff that they've added is actually really good, though. I mean, you can literally select what you're doing, what your challenge is, what difficulty you're on. You can let people know if you're chill or if you're like, trying to grind for some trophy or some reputation or whatever. You can even request what type of class of players you want to join. You want warlocks, or you want experienced players only, or just newbies, or you could say women of Destiny and get a bunch of girls to play with you. If you're a woman, you want to just kind of play with women. You can do all those things. It's actually really good, and it's helped me with a lot of things I missed or end game activities where I can't.
Of like, hey, I need a guide. I need someone who knows this raid so that they can help me.
You can select that too. Need a teacher, or if you're the teacher, you can sort of recruit that way and be like, hey, I'm gonna guide some people through this dungeon tonight, and you just put a poster up on the board and people search for it, and then you team up, matchmake, get in there and go. And so far, for the most part, it's like 90% of the time, it's a good experience. Yeah. Good change. That's one time where they've actually listened,
the kind
and
of stuff that adds freshness and adds additional experiences that help further both the existing community and the new community as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Those little moments. So, talking a little more about live service, we did see from, we've heard from Sony, we've heard it from Warner Brothers that this is like the model, even Ubisoft, this is the model moving forward. Like
that they want to do.
We got dozens of games in the works from Sony. We got stuff from Bungie, the new Marathon game, which is an extraction shooter.
Supposed to be live service.
You've got Ubisoft doing X Defiant, which is about to go into like another beta testing phase and launch later this year, where it's a Counter-Strike type of shooter, but with a bunch of different characters from all the Ubisoft games and worlds mashed together. And then Warner Brothers, kind of saying the same thing, where it's like, we did the Suicide Squad game, we've done, we want to do the Harry Potter thing, which, if it's as executed as well as Hogwarts Legacy is, and it works, and it's balanced, and it's fun, you have like a $1 billion idea there. Like,
right. Yeah. I think that a Harry Potter style live service can work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that again, what we kind of said at the very beginning was you need the balance of how many live service titles are you going to make and how many single release titles are you going to make. And that percentage needs to be a proper like split. Because I really think that you can have at most maybe 2 games per a studio that are live service.
And that'd have to be a large studio too, to be honest.
Say we pick a Ubisoft where like Siege can continue as it is and they can do maybe an X Defiant, but then the rest focus on just crafting your released game that you then send out and release. Because this idea that those kinds of games can't work, can't be profitable, can't feasibly, don't work into the structure of how the company is run. Nonsense. We have seen this time and time again. Baldur's Gate 3 comes out. Elden Ring comes out. Stardew Valley comes out.
Yeah.
These are single player boxed experiences where it is go play and exist in this world for however long you want to or however long the game runs, finish it and have your fun. And that game can make a lot of money.
It can.
If it's designed correctly. So this idea that, oh, we can't do that. Everything has to be live service. Everything has to like release and have a roadmap and a battle pass and expansions. No. You are perfectly fine with saying, hey, these games over here, these are our live services. They are handled by live service teams. They have a roadmap and a content strategy for at least this year, if not the years following it. The rest of you guys that have been working on single player games for a decade to 2 decades, continue to make the releases that you do, because what people do is they go play the single player game, they go play it, they have their 20, 30 hours of fun, and then they come back to your live service game, and they go, hi, what did I miss? Oh, there's some new content, let's play it.
Everything has a schedule, and you can work within that where your own games are not competing against each other.
Yep.
It's that you're playing a single player game while you're waiting on the live service game's new season to drop. Nobody's suffering, nobody's making any less money. You know, it's all about scheduling things properly and not dropping games that compete with yourself, or, you know, choosing to drop the Horizon video games the same time as Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild, or dropping a Call of, or not a Call of Duty, a Battlefield versus Titanfall versus Call of Duty grudge match. That's crazy. And that's why EA thinks that we don't want another Titanfall. That's why EA thinks when they drop a single-player game like Immortals of Avium, the Magic first-person shooter, they're like, well, I guess you don't want single-player games anymore. I'm like, dude, you got the wrong message. You didn't get educated from what you did.
You didn't understand the reason why this game or that game didn't succeed. You have to listen to what the audience says about your game. If you take in that, say if CD Projekt Red took in that, oh, Cyberpunk did not perform well, it didn't sell well, we are no longer making single player story driven games. No, that's not what we said. We said the performance on this fucking game sucks, fix it. We want to play the game, but we physically can't because it melts our GPUs.
Yeah.
Fix it. So, no, I think it is a very bad idea to be like, all of it, live service, make it happen. Even if it's a single player game, make it live service. No.
No, that's crazy. But
Keep
that
single
is
player things as single player things, and live service is live service. If you want to add DLC and expansions to your single player games, that's fine. But structure it in a way that makes logical sense.
Yeah, that's when CEOs and boardrooms of executives and the stock market guys, they want live
Right.
service because they want to be able to promise for investors.
They see the numbers.
And every big studio is looking at that as like, oh, this is the way forward. This is the only way we can please people continuously and make sure that our prices are up and the market's good and everything's fine. But I mean, the reason we got into video games and the reason people got into the making of video games was to make good stuff that you could generally be proud of.
Stories.
And tell stories.
To tell a released, finished story of, hey, here's a character, here's a boy named Link who goes on an adventure in a magical forest to save a princess. Don't need a battle pass for that game. Don't need a live service functionality for that game. Yeah. People are going to play that game and say, that game was fun. I hope they tell me another story further down the road about somewhere, another adventure that character goes on, or a different character in that world that goes on another adventure. Doesn't need to have that happen. I find it interesting that back in the day, there was this antithesis for certain games where the publisher and often like the head of that publishing company would look at the studio and said, all right, when you bring this game to market, I want to see Call of Duty numbers, because that was the go-to at the time of metrics for sales. Was how many copies Modern Warfare 2 had sold. And I find it interesting that we are in the span now where you want your game to be as disassociated from Call of Duty as much as possible because of the business practices that they have now done.
Yeah.
With Modern Warfare.
Yeah. They've gone all over the place, and they're charging you out the wazoo for characters and weapon skins and all sorts of stuff. And they're not always delivering on what the players want. We wanted more DMZ, and then they took that mode out. And then they said, we're going to give you that mode, but with zombies stuffed in and PvE and, a lackluster experience. And then it's no wonder I uninstalled the game.
We're going to release a campaign that is shorter than every other Call of Duty campaign.
Yeah. Yet
we will charge you full price for something that in-house was going to be just a DLC expansion, but then somebody at the higher-up table said, no,
we gotta launch a new game every year. We're used to this money coming in.
After the statement of, we will stop doing annualized Call of Duty because it hurts the experience.
It does.
Let's go back to it.
Nope, they went right back to it immediately. That's a shame, because Call of Duty can do some really incredible things. It can be
a lot of fun.
It can be, yeah. But you can't, there's no time to innovate when you're doing, Madden every year, essentially. You're just slapping a new number on and just updating some models and some graphics or whatever, or just changing the way we look down the sights or whatever. Those little changes aren't enough to reinvent the series. So yeah, live service games, CEOs, all these guys are saying this is the future, but right now we're seeing bigger success in a lot of single-player games, a lot of RPGs, and then you have Helldivers come out and prove that the live service model can work, but you have to do it right.
You have a studio that knows what they're doing and has a razor focus on at the outset of your release, you have to make a game that is fun.
If fun.
Your game is fun to play and your gameplay loop is fun to play, people will engage with your content. And then you can start to think about, let's add a little piece here, or let's add some new thing. Let's add some new enemies. Let's add mech suits. Let's do these small little
And look at how fast they've done that. They've done that so quickly. Little Easter eggs, little things here and there in the world. Someone will say, "Oh, I saw a mech crashed into the ground. They're coming soon." Or, "Oh, the new battle pass, the new guns. I saw somebody running around with, driving the new APC. I saw somebody summon in troopers, which is a totally new feature." It's like,
and we are back to literally the playground experience of, oh, did you know you can get this character in Mortal Kombat if you do these different things? You get into that community conversation of us learning from each other from playing the game. And that is all thanks to creating an experience that is entertaining and fun to engage with. I find it really funny that the biggest problem with Helldivers 2 was that they didn't anticipate how many people would want to come and play it, that their servers could not handle it. And they had to apologize and say, "Wow, you guys really want to play this game. Give us some time here. Let us fix this."
Yeah, it was a serious issue, but that's what happens when success hits a studio that big. Pow World had the same thing where it's like they're a relatively small and new studio. Cuphead had the same issue where it's like they're a small studio of inexperienced people. They're animators. They're not they're not game designers in any sense, and this was their first project, and it turns into this, critically acclaimed, banger. And the same with Helldivers and Pow World. Even the devs of Pow World, they said, "We have so much money from sales, we don't know what to do with it.
We don't know what to do with it." Yeah.
And they said, "We're not looking to be acquired," but, they kind of left it open since Microsoft was helping them with kind of setting up more servers and just kind of, doing bug fixes and patches and making sure that they're on their way and that game doesn't explode or fall by the wayside. It's some very weird examples out there of how Pow World's a response to, hey, if you just gave us a Pokemon game with like modern graphics and
what
actual innovation,
other studios wouldn't.
Yeah,
just like, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves.
Exactly, kind of the way some other games are taking more. Helldivers takes risks that Halo won't do, because they pitched an ODST 2, which essentially would have been a lot like Helldivers. Yeah.
But nope.
And Microsoft shot them down. And they were like, "No, this isn't what we want."
And Helldivers is super interesting because did you ever play Helldivers 1?
No, I need to though. I'm all in.
I did, because it was like, hey, and the thing about Helldivers 1 to 2 is that I find it's a very similar situation to Risk of Rain 1 to Risk of Rain 2, where you took the core concept of 4 people going down to a planet to do missions and heavy amounts of friendly fire.
Yeah.
But for the second game, let's change up the perspective and swap our graphics engine to something that looks nicer to look at and gives us more space to customize and play with things, and just lean further into all those ideas that we created with the first game. I think it's so... And here's the thing. Helldivers 1, all the requisition call-ins that you use the D-pad to punch in, "Oh, I need resupply," or "I need a bomb over here," those are in the first game. They're identical. They're the same.
I love that. That's such a fun mechanic because it is chaotic trying to enter those combinations to call stuff in. And skipping that by using a Stream Deck or some other peripheral hotkeys like that, you're missing the fun, the tension of I entered the wrong code, or I got to type this in.
I need to throw down support charge.
Exactly. That's part of the thrill of the action, the fun of the game. I think that's going to be the example for a while moving forward of like, hey, if, you know, you're going to do this, you need to come in with the approach of the game needs to be fun first. Everything should be unlockable through
Yeah.
just playing the game, and then, you know, if people do want to invest and spend real world money, they gladly will, because the
Yep.
game will be so damn good. And I have no problem with doing that. I haven't done it yet, but I could
Mhm.
see it down the road. And Payday 3,
Absolutely.
right? Payday 3
Right.
came out, and Starbreeze's CEO has been let go. And they said, we need new leadership. We're not happy with the direction this game went or the sales. And it's really hard to compete. They're coming off Payday 2, where they had like 10 years worth of DLC, characters, maps, new heists, new guns, new weapon skins,
Yeah.
new mask customizations. And a lot of that's not in Payday 3, which, you know, some of that kind of sucks. Like the deeper layers of customization that we had in 2 are not there. And yeah, it's understandable that they can't bring in all those maps day one. They
Right.
can't just like reskin them and run
Yeah.
them in this
Here's
new
everything.
engine or the new graphics or whatever. Like those take time, and they've added some of the like the mission where you make meth in the house. Like they added
Right.
that one. They added some of the classic bangers, which shows that they want to do good. And they're definitely doing health updates, and they're constantly working on more stuff to add, but they're already in a state of playing catch up. It's already their No Man's Sky, their cyberpunk moment, whatever you want to call it. And it's not the most disastrous of a game. It's just a game that only launched with like 6 to 8 maps or whatever. I haven't even finished all of it.
The other piece is when your game gets slapped with the servers of this game are not good right now, wait for them to be good.
Yeah,
That
that happened.
deterrent is a real powerful sense in driving people away. Like, I have not touched Payday 3 because I was waiting for friends to be like, okay, the servers work now, we can actually play. Because all I heard about for Payday 3 was when you could play the game,
It was
it's
fun.
the experience that you wanted, but it was getting to play the game. Like, I use video games to get away from like the annoyances of real life. I don't need the annoyance of waiting in line to do the thing that I want to do to. I
Yeah.
do that every day in my daily commute. I don't
Mhm.
need that in my fun.
Absolutely. I think most of the server issues are fixed now, but it's
That's
just
good.
you might just be left with an experience where there's only so much you can do. But granted, you could replay those missions a lot. There's a lot of replayability. There's gear and weapons to grind for and unlock, and I think some of that's meaningful. But the way they did, I don't know. They took out the real world cutscene briefings, and now they're all motion comics, and that to me, it's just once again not dissing the motion comics, but it feels a little
Right.
like we're trying to trim out some of the budget there of not having to have those live action cutscenes, which actually looked really cool, and narrations or having motion capture in there. That would have been really cool. It just takes away a lot of the interest and the drama of role playing as these characters when you just have to sit there and watch stupid little motion comics instead. There was a certain vibe that Payday 2 really had that
Yes,
just
that it
nailed
really
it, dude.
had.
It was like Heat. It was like the video game of Heat.
Yep.
And they just is a love letter to that movie and every heist movie in a way, because they've pretty
Yeah.
much come in through DLC and did John Wick and Point Break and Scarface and Hotline Miami and
Hotline, yeah.
all sorts of wild stuff. Christmas content that they put out. I'm shocked that that game had the support it did over 10 years. That's incredible and commendable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's where we are. Payday 3, swapping out their leadership. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if leadership... It could change some things, and it might take a while for us to see those changes, but I think it's better to fire the boss. The boss should be accountable, not laying off 1,000 devs. So this is actually a good example of like when your game fucks up, you need to look at your leadership.
Studio.
Yes, you need to look at them.
Restructure the people who made these particular decisions that led to poor releases or things that didn't go well.
It's not about the artists or the bug testers or the whoever else falls in the development team.
They're clocking in trying to do their fucking job. They're not responsible for like
they have to do what you say, even if it's a shitty decision.
You told them that
you told them to make that dumb decision.
Friday, so cut corners.
Yep. So it's a good example, but man, it's rough. Because we've seen some record layoffs these past few years. And it doesn't look like it's getting better, but I did see that GDC had a bunch of little conventions about unionization. And so maybe that's a step forward. If game devs can unionize and if they can do it well and do it right. And if maybe that leads to more accountability for the guys at the top where they're like, okay, well, even if we don't unionize, like we're actually founding this studio with the idea that we're going to compensate people fairly and that we're going to take accountability and that when a game does bad, the guys at the top will take the pay cuts first so that the guys at the bottom don't have to be fired unless it becomes absolutely like untenable. Yeah.
Take it from the people who have the ability to, they can lose a chunk of their golden parachute or their percentages off the top, and not take it from the artist who can barely pay their fucking rent.
And they moved across the country to get that job. Right. That's the other thing. They uprooted their entire life. Yeah. And then every year, I've seen anecdotes on Twitter of game devs where it's like, they move every year to a new city to get a new job at a new studio, and every time there's layoffs, they get hit, and then they go and move to another city, new job, new studio. Oh, I finally made it. Oh, it's been a year anniversary. Oh, look, here come the layoffs, even though Insomniac or various other studios had record sales. They're like, oh, we got to lay people off now. But it's like, how do you win? You make a good game, you get fired. You make a shitty game, you get fired. Yeah. Oh, no. Well, do we have anything else? I feel like we hit the live service stuff pretty well.
I think we covered basically almost everything. So, like, to the antithesis of, like, live service is perfectly fine, but you have to balance the amount of live service titles that your like development team or studio releases. You should hand it to teams that have worked on or know what they're doing in terms of a live service. And when you release your game, focus on that the game at the outset has to be entertaining and good enough that if you put a 10-20 hour grind in your game, that people don't mind because they go, oh, you know what, the game's actually kind of fun, I'll play it. And as for monetization, it has to be worth the person's, like, it has to be balanced in such a way where if you're doing expansions have to be worth the asking price, both in terms of how much it's valued at and is there enough content in that expansion to justify that price. If there's additional monetization for cosmetics or battle pass or stuff like that, it has to be worth the asking price and it has to be worth the time investment. All of these things can work, and there's nothing wrong with some of these things inherently, but you have to plan these things out correctly and possibly adjust and rework them as things change and your community says, hey, this grind feels unfair, or the price of this thing is not at what the content amount is. Live service can work, but you need the right people to work with it, and yeah, you need the right team with the right ideas. Because if it hits and it works, it can keep going for 5, 10 onwards years.
Yeah.
But it has to work.
And that's the other issue it brings up, is that when you do this, you're locking Crystal Dynamics into making an Avengers game for several years instead of another Tomb Raider. You're locking in Rocksteady to the Suicide Squad thing instead of them making a single-player Superman game or a Wonder Woman. Monolith is doing the Wonder Woman game using the Nemesis engine from the
Shadow of War.
Shadow of War, yeah.
So give it to a team that is either already in the span of they know how to make live service, or building a new team to make live service. Don't force single player story based release team and point at them and go, make us a live service multiplayer thing or you're all fired. No, because they're not going to, because their heart's not in it. They don't want to do it. It's not what they've done for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Suicide Squad, is that even if you like the idea and you enjoy playing the game, I think there's a gross misunderstanding of like, this may be what WB wanted to make.
Right.
But this is not what the players wanted. After Batman Arkham, we wanted a Superman game. We wanted any superhero to get their own game, Green Lantern, whatever, or more Batman games. But actually, I'm in the mindset that Arkham Knight is a perfect finale. Either let that Batman rest, created a new Batman, new universe. Right. But nobody wanted a Suicide Squad game. Nobody asking... I mean, you'd have to search real deep and nasty into Twitter, deepest depths of Reddit, to find somebody that says, gee, I sure would love a Suicide Squad game. And especially one where you kill the Justice League, kill our favorite heroes. Everyone wants a Justice League game. Everyone wants Marvel Ultimate Alliance to come back. Everyone wants X-Men Legends to return. These things are nowhere to be seen. So it's a gross misunderstanding of WB and Rocksteady to some extent. It's possible that maybe they wanted to make a different game and that the higher-ups said, hey, no, you got to do this, and it's got to be live service. But to me, it's a misunderstanding of your audience, and that's what EA did when they release the wrong things at the wrong time, or they come out with a game and then they learn the wrong lesson from what happened. So I don't know if WB or if Rocksteady will learn the right lesson from this. Hopefully the game makes it at least a year, but I don't see anything beyond that. And it's because you don't understand what the audience wants. You take a little bit of time to listen and do some research about what the next game should be, and you focus in on that.
Listen to what your community wants, not what the investors say the community wants.
Yeah, because no one wants to buy it. That's the other problem. The player counts are in the trash. And it's not a fun experience. That might actually, one final topic there is that is kind of annoying, is that we are constantly comparing Metacritic scores and player counts on Steam because that's the only data we have. And so everybody's using that to say like, well, my favorite game has 6,000 players and your favorite game has 320 players. Therefore, your game sucks. Mine has a Metacritic score of 96.
Steam charts?
Yeah, Steam charts. I think that's...
off.
I need... that needs to be deleted. I really don't like that we reduce games even to review scores. Because you know a good game when you see it, and everyone has their own tastes and their own things that they like. Something I may like may be absolute trash to you, and vice versa. We all have different opinions. Opinions are subjective. So Metacritic ends up being this definitive score of like, this is what everyone thinks, and if you disagree, you're wrong. And so my game has a 96, your game has a 72. my favorite movie on Rotten Tomatoes is a 96 audience score, but a 2% critic score. You know, mine's the best movie, yours sucks, you know, whatever it is. It sucks that everything's getting reduced to that. And even with Starfield, people are bringing up the player counts on Steam. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's a single player game. You play it and you're done. Elden Ring. Yeah. Elden Ring doesn't even have great player counts because guess what? We played it and we finished it. There's constantly new people discovering it.
For DLC. When DLC comes out,
the
player count will go back up.
It's going to be a million people. Again. Yeah, and it will. It will. As great a game as it is, and same with Skyrim. Incredible game, incredible sales. But you know what? Once people kind of get their experience,
when they're done, they're done.
They're done. They might check out mods, and then there's constantly new players discovering it every day, right? There's new people playing it on their Samsung fridge and their mobile phone and their Steam Deck and every platform that they release that game on. Same with GTA. There's constantly new people discovering these games. But constantly analyzing the player counts every time a new expansion drops or every time, you know, we just feel like dogging on the game. And I've seen it most dominantly with Starfield, where it's like, they're like, oh, it's been a month. Oh, it's been 3 months. Why is nobody playing? It's, you know, they're waiting for the next expansion, or they're busy with like 7 of the other RPGs that have come out since, you know?
Yeah, that they focus on, and say with Starfield, that they focus on the player count and the numbers and the popularity there versus not thinking about, hey, has the game released any new updates or any new features? Has Bethesda said if there's going to be an expansion or DLC to it? Because Starfield's one where I didn't jump in and buy it at the outset. I'm still interested in it. Yeah. And I'm almost more interested in it when it gets to that next stage of, oh, here's the first piece of DLC, here's the new expansion. All right, let's jump in. Let's see how we're doing. Hey, how's the Nexus page looking for this game? Because I love playing Bethesda games after the modders get their hands on the code and start going, why the fuck did they optimize it like this? Let's fix all that.
I think that's supposed to be
things here. Let's fix all that.
That might already be out. They might already have the mod thing happening.
Oh, 100% they do. It's just...
because they were waiting on that. That only launched in like January or something. It took a few months before that hit the road.
Because Bethesda actually has a mod kit where they're just like, here you go. Here's how the game works architecture-wise. Here's how you design stuff for it.
So that's good. The new update is called Shattered Space, but they haven't revealed anything on that. But they have acknowledged that players want, you know, a rover, like a car to drive on the planet, because it sucks walking around. It really does. Going on your jetpack and sprinting around and, you know, flying your ship and landing over here and flying your ship and landing in this section of the planet. It's not the most fun way to explore. So there's good things and bad things about the game. I think it's a great game, but it definitely, you know, when you hold it up next to like a No Man's Sky where that game is now, it's kind of not fair to compare that,
and
but
also
it doesn't live up
to numbers on Steam charts.
Yeah.
No. That doesn't work like that. People will play the game when there's new content or that they have the time to play it as well. Because as we've kind of discussed time and time again, when there are X number of single release games coming out and then all these different live services with battle passes and time commitments therein, you have to pick and choose what you do.
It's even the same thing with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They're saying the numbers on that game, the sales are not very good. It's not doing great in Japan. And it's an incredible game, and everybody's talking about it, and everybody's playing it and stuff, but like still, it is a niche game. It's a niche community, and I don't know why it didn't sell amazingly, but you know, we probably shouldn't analyze player counts to figure out why that's true. It's, you know, it's deeper issues, but it also launched in a month with like 4 or 5 other games in the same week.
That's busy.
And throughout the month, yeah. So I mean, it's ridiculous, and that's coming off the tail end of a very hot holiday season of a lot of games with a lot of hours. There's people still playing Baldur's Gate, and all these other titles that they're not done with. So why would you want to buy another 70, 80-hour game? You're probably going to wait until it goes on sale. Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got any closing notes for us?
No, I think we've
exhausted the live service thing. I really like your points that you've made.
Quite a bit, yeah. Well, it's the thing of when live services hit for me, like when Warframe hit for me and has hit for me, I still take long breaks from Warframe when it's just like, all right, is there any new content? No, we're good. All right, check out. Come back in when there's a new expansion. But live service can work if the studio knows what they're doing, and I am perfectly fine with continuing to play and fund that and give that studio money to keep saying, hey, what you guys do is good. I want to reward good behavior with my disposable income. And I think that's really what we should do, is reward good studio behavior and good products that are provided to us and be like, hey, vote with your money and go, that's what I want to see continue to be, so that's where I will put my disposable income.
100%. I'm with you. Well, gamers, that's going to be it for episode 49 of the Shackcast. I want to thank Acting Relic for jumping in on this one. This was a passionate conversation that we were cooking up, and we couldn't fit it all on our previous episode. We got too much into life in Japan, and that was awesome. It was really great. I'm still flashing back to some of the food and the vocabulary and the stories and all that. It's incredible stuff. So once again, thank you for being here. Gamers, you can find the Shackcast anywhere podcasts are available, here on YouTube as well. Make sure you head over to Acting Relic's channel. I'll have links in the description. Go and follow him. Check out his stuff. If you enjoy it, let him know. So once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Take care. Be safe. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.